What's up YouTube, Playmatter here, bringing you this week's Yu-Gi-Oh! Rulings for You video. In this video we will cover missing timing, SEGOC and problem solving card text, some more Shadol rulings, some Vanity's Empties rulings, a Curry Bandit ruling question, and finally answering a big question about whether it's okay for any judge at any level of play to verify the cards in your hand or the cards in your deck versus cards like Change Disappearance to check that all the cards have been removed, or Nobleman of Crossout, etc. Okay, so the first question was about missing timing. If you can effects don't miss timing, when you can effects do miss timing. So when can you make something miss timing? If there is a chain, where there is chain link 1, let's say Max C, and chain link 2 Torrential Tribute, then anything destroyed by that Torrential Tribute will want to activate, but Max C is yet to resolve. Now if it's an if you can effect, if this card is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon another card from your deck. That's fine, that will activate and it'll happen in a new chain. If it says when this card is sent to the graveyard you can special summon a card from your deck, it will miss timing because the Max C is yet to resolve. Other times the cards can miss timing is when there are two parts of an effect and the second part hasn't yet resolved. So for example, Soul Taker, after it's destroyed one monster, the opponent gains 1000 life points. So because the monster destruction is not the last thing to happen, but the raise in life points is the last thing to happen, any when you can effect of a monster that is destroyed will not be able to activate because the life points are the last thing to happen. So that briefly explains missing timing. If you can doesn't miss timing, it forms a new chain. When you can does miss timing and doesn't form a new chain. So I was feeling that this is all great, but only if you have a really good idea of how chains work. So there's a phrase called SEGOC, which is simultaneous effects go on chains. So anything that activates all at the same time all goes on a chain. So for example, Mermail Abyss Megalo discarding Atlantean Dragoons and Atlantean Marksman. They don't activate just yet. Mermail Abyss Megalo activates, pays his costs and summons himself. So because Atlanteans are mandatory effects, those effects also cannot miss timing and go on a new chain. So in the new chain we have Atlantean Dragoons and Atlantean Marksman and Mermail Abyss Megalo as chain link 1, chain link 2 and chain link 3 if you activate the Megalo to search out for an Abyss spell or trap card. With Marksman you target first, so you target before the chain finishes just in case they want to chain the card that you want to target. The Dragoons and Marksman you can order any way which round you like. That chain will then resolve backwards as Megalo would search first, so you target beforehand and then the target is destroyed if it's still an available target, and then Dragoons would search. I also want to briefly talk about problem solving card text. Since Generation Force they've been working to update card text on cards and bring all cards out since Generation Force with what's called problem solving card text or PSCT. For example, in Order of Chaos they brought in the phrase except during the damage step. Remove from play became banish. All cards printed since then now say whether they target, and recently monsters have said if they are a quick effect. There's loads more things on the wiki, I'm going to leave the link to that below. And the last thing I wanted to talk about before going on to specific cards was about a question about whether judges are allowed in any way to verify if your hand or your deck does not contain cards that it's not allowed to. So for example, when Chain Disappearance is used it banishes all the cards from the deck. When Nobleman is used it banishes all the cards from both players' decks, and that does need to be verified. You are not allowed to get a judge or a friend or any other player to verify that for you. Your opponent verifies and confirms that there is no card in there. Both players must confirm that both players' decks are legal. This includes checking the hand or the deck or the extra deck whenever required. Also, your opponent is allowed to read your cards. Anything that takes them over 1 minute to verify, whether it's your deck or your hand or your extra deck, is counted as stalling. But under that, they're allowed to read your cards, they're allowed to look at them, they're allowed to confirm them, but they're not allowed to write anything down, and that is legal and isn't considered to disrupt the flow of the game. Also, the player being checked may not interfere in any way or hide any information. So you can't just flash your hand at your opponent because it's got all spells and they're looking for a monster. I know it can be frustrating, but that is just the rules. Okay, so I'm going to roll on to DN and we're going to have a look at individual cards that have come into question over the weekend. Okay, so we'll start out with a question on my channel last week on this video. I was asked whether Curry Bandit resolved on the field. The simple answer is yes, Curry Bandit resolves on the field. I just want to go over effects and their resolutions briefly. Every single effect in the entire game, unless it says so on the card, activates and resolves in exactly the same place, no matter where the card goes. So you've probably played the video games, and there's this imaginary, and chain links are drawn on the field with circles and numbers. Now those circles and numbers don't move depending on where the card goes, so that's the effect, that's where it activates, and that's where it resolves. Rescue Rabbit and Curry Bandit activate on the field, and then attribute themselves or banish themselves as a cost. An interesting fact with Debunk and, let's say, Maxi. Maxi activates and resolves in the hand. If your opponent debunks the Maxi, they can negate the effect, but Maxi will not be banished. This is basically because Debunk is looking in the hand for the Maxi, and the Maxi isn't there. Okay, so there's been a lot of questions about Vanity's emptiness this weekend, a lot of disputes at locals, at regionals, and I just wanted to clear up a few of the rulings that have been ruled and that are official rulings. There was a question, can you activate XYZ Encore if Vanity's emptiness is faced upon the field? The answer is no. It is not optional to special summon those monsters, so you can activate this whilst emptiness is on the field. The next question is, what happens to Shadow Core or any other trap monster card if Vanity's emptiness is chained to it? Quite simply, it becomes useless. It's a continuous trap, so it stays face up on the field in the trap zone, not as a monster. And it floats just like Phoenix Chain and won't destroy itself under any circumstance unless the card says so on the card. The next question is with the Monarch Stormforth and the Shadow monsters. The question was actually, would they miss timing if the Monarch Stormforth is used and one of these monsters is tributed? Well, no, they wouldn't miss timing, but they wouldn't get their effect at all because they are tributed, not sent to the graveyard by a card effect. If you do activate an effect that does destroy Shadow monsters, all of their effects that activate and resolve in the graveyard cannot miss timing, as they are if you can effects. If this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can draw one card. The next question is with Spell Chronicle. It's an old card, it doesn't have problem solving card text, and it reads, send all cards in your hand to the graveyard, select and remove from play 5 spell or trap cards from your deck. Each time your opponent activates a spell card, place 1 Chronicle counter on this card. You can remove 2 Chronicle counters to have your opponent select one of the cards removed from play with this card's effect and add it to your hand. When this card is removed from the field, you take 500 damage for each that is still removed from play due to this card's effect. Okay, so this card saw some use over the weekend, so naturally a lot of people were questioning whether this card was a cost to send all the cards in your hand to the graveyard, and whether it was a cost to remove from play the spells or traps. Okay, so this is basically why problem-solving card text was brought in, because it gets quite confusing as to what is and what isn't a cost. And now we have the condition first, which is during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned this turn. The condition being it has to have been normal summoned this turn, and it has to be the end phase. Followed by the cost. You contribute this card, cost, followed by a semicolon. So semicolons follow costs, colons follow conditions. However, other old cards that haven't been converted into problem-solving card text through being reprinted yet have stated that their first sentence with a full stop is the cost. Send all cards in your hand to the graveyard is a cost. Select and remove from play 5 spell or trap cards is not a cost, it's an effect. And then each time it's the continuous effect. There is also another effect, which is when this card is removed from the field, you take 500 damage for each card that is still removed from play due to this card's effect. It is a mandatory effect when this card is removed from the field, so this also cannot miss timing. Hopefully that clears up how this card is currently being ruled at the moment. The last question is mostly about Forbidden Lance, but I'll just kind of explain the scenario and the question involved. The question was, if Spellbook of Power has been used on a priestess and it has resolved, so it has the 1000 boost, it's entered the battle phase, it's now attacking a monster, and the other player activates Forbidden Lance on targeting the High Priestess of Prophecy. Forbidden Lance, it can only interact with effects that are currently affecting a monster. So for example, in a chain, if it's chain link 3, chain links 1 and 2, if they are spell or traps trying to affect a monster, will not affect the monster. However, if there is then a chain link 4 targeting the monster, that will resolve, and Forbidden Lance will not in any way negate or stop that effect from occurring. So in this scenario, High Priestess would just lose 800 attack points, and if it did destroy a monster, it would still search. Okay guys, so thanks for watching the video. The list of cards was quite short this week because we covered a lot of things at the beginning of the video. I'm just going to switch off the DN. Okay, so that was this week's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you like the rulings. I hope you like the explanations for things at the beginning of the video. Please comment, rate and subscribe. It really does mean a lot. That's all for today. Playmatter, signing out.